calm. So, I mean, I was just doing my job. I mean, that's all I can do.
I actually did talk to Daniel Jones. He was just like, I'm happy that you're here.
Did you ever consider taking Daniel out of the game?
No.
It's been a very, very difficult year for the New York Giants. I know it was just week 1, but the thing is it's continuing to get worse and worse for the Giants. And if things continue, we could potentially see a brand new front office by this time next year and a brand new head coach. So before we get to the content, make sure you drop like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to help the channel grow. Now that we got all that out of the way, break! If you follow me on Instagram at @TheFlightMike and followed my Friday night picks for Prize Picks, then you made yourself some money. Unfortunately, I didn't get as lucky with the free square, but luckily for us, we're getting another free square for week 2. And once again, it's with Caleb Williams. All Caleb Williams needs is 1 passing yard versus the Houston Texans for his square to hit. We just gotta pair this with something that we believe is guaranteed and we'll automatically make ourselves some money. I'm gonna post my Caleb Williams pick onto my Instagram story when a new board comes out. And guys, use my promo code Mikerophone to get a free $50 when you play a game of $5 or more. You don't even need to win to get the $50. It's guaranteed. This game's really fun, especially if you're good at projecting how players are going to do. And thank you, Prize Picks, for the sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? I feel very mixed feelings about the New York Giants general manager Joe Schoen, and it's because their previous general manager was significantly worse and was doing way dumber stuff than what Schoen's currently doing. But at the same time, there are moments where Schoen makes moves that on paper sound like a good idea, and then they just don't pan out for him. For example, he traded a 3rd round pick for Darren Waller. On the surface, that seemed like a good trade. In reality, it didn't really do much for the New York Giants. Darren Waller was decent whenever he was on the field. The problem was he was rarely on the field, and then he retired after this past year. And it seems like the Giants are consistently making moves like this. I mean, I applauded them for trading a late round pick for Isaiah Simmons last summer. I applauded them for fleecing the Carolina Panthers out of Brian Burns. And even the 2022 NFL draft, at least at the time, the moves that they were making seemed to be intelligent moves. I mean, I know hindsight's 2020, but everyone thought that Kayvon Thibodeau had the athleticism to potentially be the next big thing at the edge rusher position. The New York Giants were supposed to have a very underrated pass rush this year with Lawrence, Brian Burns, and Kayvon Thibodeau. And I know we meme the selection of Evan Neal consistently, but at the time when the Giants did select Evan Neal, a lot of people thought that he was going to go within the top 3. And it doesn't really help that the New York Giants 2022 first round picks are starting to look like busts, especially Evan Neal. And their 2023 first round pick didn't look that good either. And that's what I mean when I say at the time of these decisions, it looks like they're great decisions that are going to change the New York Giants. It looks like they're intelligent decisions for sure, and especially considering what they were doing with their draft picks before the Schoen era, I'd have to say I'm very much on board with some of these decisions, but they never end up panning out. And the icing on the cake was the fact that this team was featured on HBO's Hard Knocks in season this past year, which, by the way, I think is the cruelest version of Hard Knocks that I think I've ever seen. 70% of the show is literally Joe Schoen and John Mara discussing what they should do about Saquon Barkley.
Hello?
Saquon,
Yeah, what's up?
you doing all right? The right thing to do is let you test the market and see what your value is. If you really want to be a Giant for life, does that sound good?
Yeah. I mean, I already told you where I want to be, so.
Okay.
All right, I appreciate you.
All right, Saquon, I'll talk to you.
And I know if you happen to be a fan of the New York Giants, you might be thinking, oh, it's so easy, just pay Saquon Barkley, damn it! But the reality is, the Saquon Barkley decision was way more complicated than should we pay Saquon Barkley a bunch of money or no? Because at the end of the day, Saquon Barkley being on the Giants and Saquon Barkley being off of the Giants wouldn't really affect the Giants' ability to win a Super Bowl. Saquon Barkley is without a doubt their most popular player, was their most popular player ever since Odell Beckham Jr. left. And throughout Saquon's career, he's demonstrated that he can be an absolute weapon if he's not the only weapon on the offense. And this really goes for any halfback ever in NFL history, whether it's with Christian McCaffrey during his latter years with the Panthers or Saquon Barkley when he's with the New York Giants. I mean, for example, during the 2018 season, his rookie year, the Giants still had Odell Beckham Jr. Saquon had 11 touchdowns and over 1,300 yards rushing with the Giants. One rookie of the year was a Pro Bowler, over 2,000 yards from scrimmage. The very next year, he still had over 1,000 yards rushing despite being injured, although not as many touchdowns. Then in 2020, he would be injured for the majority of the season, and in 2021, he'd play in 13 games but wasn't as effective because the Giants really had no one else on their team except for Saquon Barkley, and he was being coached by Joe Judge. So obviously, he wasn't going to succeed there. He averaged 3.7 yards per carry, and he looked like a bona fide scrub. Rightfully so, because the Giants had no O-line, no weapons outside of him. Really, all you had to do when you faced off against the Giants was stack the box. In 2022, he had a resurgent season. When Brian Dable came in, Daniel Jones actually looked like an above-average quarterback, and Saquon averaged 4.4 yards per carry. But last year, when Daniel Jones was playing like garbage in the beginning of the season, and then there was a revolving door at the quarterback position for the rest of the season, he went back down to a sub 4 yards per carry, but still had 6 touchdowns and almost 1,000 yards rushing. What's the point? Well, clearly the Giants have more pressing needs than Saquon Barkley, and paying a halfback the amount that the Eagles paid Saquon is a luxury for a team that is trying to make a push to the Super Bowl. I'll always say this about Saquon. My take hasn't changed for the Philadelphia Eagles. If Saquon is healthy throughout the season, then obviously it's going to be worth the money, but that's a pretty big if. But I do like Saquon's chances, considering the fact that the Eagles have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL, and they have so many options on offense. I mean, you have a dual threat QB in Jalen Hurts, you have AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, and Saquon Barkley. Now, you might be wondering why I'm bringing this up, and it's the fact that it's really hard to look at these clips.
I'm torn, Ed, because I still think he can play, and I think he can help us. I didn't want to come in at a number because I really don't have a great idea where the market is. If you want to come back and be a Giant, let's try to make sense.
And then realize that Saquon Barkley had 3 touchdowns in his debut for the Philadelphia Eagles. It definitely doesn't paint Joe Schoen in the best light, but to be honest, I don't blame him for this decision. There's no point in overpaying Saquon Barkley to return to the New York Giants if you're going to be garbage anyway. And to be honest, I think Saquon just wanted to be in Philadelphia. He went to Penn State, they have a chance at winning a Super Bowl, they have a much better offense, and you get to face off against your old team twice a year. It's kind of crazy because the moment he signed with the Eagles, Schoen even said he didn't think Saquon would get this big of a deal.
Franchising and trading him, I don't think is realistic.
Are we positive that nobody's going to pay him that kind of money? Never no free agent.
But I think the reason why Giants fans have had enough of Joe Schoen is because, well, he seems obsessed with Daniel Jones. It's kind of weird. Like, look at this clip from Hard Knocks.
You could have Pat Mahomes, he can't fucking win it behind that. I'm not giving up on
Now look, guys, I have a very controversial take on the Daniel Jones contract, and it's mainly the fact that I believe the Giants have so many holes on their team that it doesn't really matter that you decided to donate $160 million to Daniel Jones over 4 seasons while you try to address the other parts of your team. I mean, Daniel Jones looks like a more than capable tank commander, don't get me wrong, but it's just kind of weird, this obsession with Daniel Jones. This is year 6 of the Daniel Jones experience. And I do agree with Schoen, by the way. I don't think any quarterback would be able to succeed in the circumstances that Jones was put in. I honestly think it's a blessing in disguise that the Giants didn't end up having their trade offer accepted by the New England Patriots so they could trade up to the number 3 pick and select Drake May. Because I don't think Drake May would succeed in these circumstances either, which is why I'm really happy that the Giants went out and drafted Malik Nabers. But you could tell from the offseason up until now, Malik Nabers isn't really happy to be a New York Giant. I mean, when he was drafted, take a look at what Malik Nabers had to say about Daniel Jones. No, he literally didn't even get his name right. Watch.
Talked with Daniel Jones yet?
I actually did talk to Daniel Jones. He was just like, I'm happy that you're here. We're gonna hit the ground running, and then he's gonna learn about me, I'm gonna learn about him, and we're gonna get together.
Well, that's not the crazy part. The craziest part was when they asked him, what do you think of Daniel Jones as a quarterback?
Very early, but what do you make of him as a quarterback?
I'll wait till I get here to see, all that. I'm just happy to be here. Great organization, here, so I'm just happy to be here.
It's crazy that he had an opportunity to endorse Daniel Jones, and he was like,
let me wait until I get here. I'm not going to judge before I get there. I'm just thankful to be here, It's
insane to hear that. And I'm not saying he should endorse Daniel Jones from the jump, because this is clearly an individual that's a little sad about where he went. New York is a great market to play in, beautiful city. I personally love the lifestyle of New Yorkers as well, but when you consider what could have been for Malik Neighbors, you can understand why he's a little frustrated. I mean, look at what happens when Caleb Williams brings up Daniel Jones on Malik Neighbors' live stream, and this is before he got drafted.
So what's the QB at Giants?
Of course you're going to be upset when you could have been getting bombs thrown to you by Justin Herbert and Jim Harbaugh's offense. Obviously, it's going to suck. And obviously, I'd rather be playing in Los Angeles, getting passes from Justin Herbert, than going to New York and probably being the only weapon on your offense, respectfully. And this was really blown up in the Minnesota Vikings game versus the New York Giants. Obviously, going into this game, the Giants were hoping that Daniel Jones would magically be good again. I don't really understand what the philosophy was here, because Daniel Jones was complete garbage even before his season-ending injury last year. I mean, if you take a look at his statistics, the Giants were 1-5 last year with Daniel Jones under center. He threw 2 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. And I don't know why people just happen to forget this. Do you remember during one of his final games where Devin Witherspoon picked him off and took it back 97 yards for a pick 6, and then said this in a post-game interview?
Sacked Daniel Jones 11 times. What were you hearing and seeing out there?
We knew he liked to stare down his first target, so he had his back turned. A lot of guys just win their one-on-one matchups up front.
And then, of course, when Sauce Gardner was asked what he thought about him, this is what he said.
He's a good quarterback. You feel me? I thought I was about to pick him off today. I had a little cloud rep. He had looked at the last minute to try to throw the check down to Wandale. I thought I had to pick, but he kept it. I mean, the competitive periods, it was very competitive, man. It was great. Like, I had fun out there today, I don't really know what to say.
Nobody respects Daniel Jones. I mean, even Tom Brady's taking a dig at Daniel Jones.
I think if I was doing it myself, and let's say I threw a really bad interception, I would walk to the sidelines and say, you are the worst quarterback in the world. How can you possibly make that throw? That was terrible. But I just don't want to be so critical, because in some ways I don't necessarily know exactly what the problem was on that play. If, let's say, Daniel Jones throws an interception. I didn't mean to say it like that. That's what I'm trying to say. I wasn't even being critical of Daniel Jones. Maybe I was a little bit.
So going into his very first game of the season, a team that he must feel fairly comfortable against, considering the fact that the pinnacle of his career came against the Minnesota Vikings when Daniel Jones outdueled Kirk Cousins in the playoffs in order to get the Giants in the divisional round. I know, it's crazy, but this actually happened once upon a time. But this time you don't have to go up against Kirk Cousins. You're going up against Sam Darnold. Should be way easier, correct? No, it wasn't way easier. As a matter of fact, it was disgusting. I mean, I've never seen a meltdown of this magnitude, and it was from all accounts. Daniel Jones threw for 186 passing yards and 2 interceptions, one of which being a pick 6 by Andrew Van Ginkel. Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau were nowhere to be found. One of the most promising pass rushing duos of the offseason completely disappeared. No sacks were recorded between these two. Jalen Hyatt was nowhere to be found around, but I don't really know if that's because Daniel Jones couldn't find him or what happened. The only Giant that really had a good game was Malik Neighbors. And look, I don't want to make it seem like Brian Dable gets off the hook too, but this team clearly looked like they weren't prepared either. They had 9 penalties called on them for 95 yards, which might be more of an indictment on coaching than anything else. And then you finally have the draft pick that you hit on, Malik Neighbors, saying this about Daniel Jones.
I don't know really what was going on back there, but I'm getting out my routes and I'm just trying to make a play, trying to find him, trying to make a better throw for him to make. I was just doing my job. That's all I can do.
And then it seemed like after a while he decided to blame the offensive line.
Just look over the film, see what ways we can give me the ball in space. Daniel said he was trying to give me the ball. He saw a lot of pressure in his face, so I can't control that. So, they tried to give me the ball, just stuff wasn't working right. So we just got to fix that up.
Now, you might be thinking at this point that the New York Giants would consider benching Daniel Jones, maybe look at Ryan Tannehill, because people's jobs are on the line, for crying out loud. But no, according to Brian Dable, the Giants are going to go into week 2 with Daniel Jones as their starting QB versus the Washington Commanders.
Daniel Jones is going to keep on as the Giants starting quarterback in week 2, which we're already saying that Daniel Jones is starting quarterback. Like, we have to say this now? Like, that right there is a telltale sign that this isn't going away anytime soon.
So this is about to get way, way worse. The craziest part is Dable didn't even consider benching Daniel Jones yesterday.
Did you ever consider taking Daniel out of the game?
No.
I just feel bad for Brian Dable because I think he's a very capable coach, but at the same time, I think at this point, Daniel Jones might get him fired. And you just tell that he's had it. Last year you had this one clip of him throwing the tablet and then also yelling at him, literally saying, "Do you want them to fire me?" My personal philosophy is I think Daniel Jones is even less motivated to be great now that he got a huge contract, because I've never seen a player fall off this poorly. He showed so much promise in year 1 of the Brian Dable era. You guys have to remember, this man was making plays happen despite not having any true number 1 wide receiver. And the number 1 take was, if he's this good without any help, imagine once we get him help. And it seems like either the help isn't helping, or the general manager isn't making the right call or the right decisions, or Brian Dable is starting to give up on Daniel Jones as well, and he's not coaching him as well, or Daniel Jones just doesn't seem motivated at all whatsoever. All of those seem like relatively weird takes in my opinion. It could be the combination of everything. At the end of the day, I think this might be the last year of the Daniel Jones era. I don't expect him to magically get better when he's been garbage for this long. Since signing his contract extension, the man has thrown 3 pick sixes and only 2 TDs. And it's kind of crazy, but this meme might be true at the end of the day. Daniel Jones has consistently gotten his coaches fired, and for some reason, the GM still believes in him like he could be a really good QB in the NFL. Let me know in the comment section down below if you're a Giants fan. What do you think needs to happen? Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.